Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery. I'm Zara Altair. This is where we learn to make a good mystery great. And today I want to talk about being the ringmaster for your story opening, getting your reader excited about the story to come. All right, first, I want to thank my patrons in Patreon for their continued support. They help with maintaining this series, helping me with equipment. And if you're enjoying this series, please check out the link below for Patreon, and we'd love to see you on the inside. We have special reports and photos and videos for patrons. All right, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about taking charge as the ringmaster of your story with a striking beginning. And this is going to help you, especially if you are a novel writer, because there's so many pitfalls in the beginning. So when you were little and you went to the circus, do you remember the anticipation you felt when you're sitting in the crowd waiting for the circus to begin? And then the ringmaster comes out, and there's a spotlight, and in this resonant voice, he welcomes the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. At last the circus began, and you filled with anticipation for what comes next. And that's exactly what you want to do with your story beginning. It's how you want your reader to feel. You want them to know the genre they're in. You want them to know the tone of your story. You want them to know your protagonist sleuth. And oh boy, this is going to be a good mystery. And that readers don't wait. Don't wait. All the things that worked in the 19th century were now in the 21st century. Those lingering beginnings, like Thomas Hardy's Return of the Native, where he starts with this big, broad landscape and narrows it down and narrows it down and narrows it down to this path in the meadow. Doesn't work now, right? Readers now want to get to the story. So new authors may struggle with introducing required story elements without getting to the story. So I hope I'm going to demystify that a little bit, because there are all these story elements that you're supposed to have, but then where do they fit in the beginning? So let's talk a little bit about that. In the pitfalls in the beginning of your story. In the first few pages of your novel, you need to get your reader into the story. That is the main goal of the beginning of your novel. Literary agent Peter Miller described his pet peeve in opening pages of a novel. All right, he says, I enjoy when writers can find a balance between exposition and mystery. Too much accounting always ruins the mystery of a novel, and the unknown is what propels us to read further. So that's, you want to develop this sense of what's going to happen next. All right? You're not going to tell them the whole backstory of your protagonist, or even dwelling on how that protagonist is dressed. Just get into the story and leave all that other stuff for later. All right? So writers need to find a balance between the accounting, that's the backstory and the description and the setting and all of those things, and the initial intrigue that makes the reader wonder what will happen next. That's your goal at the beginning. And there's many techniques to do that, and we're not going to talk about all the different techniques today. We're just going to talk about what it is you want to achieve in the beginning, all right? In order to get your reader to keep reading, you get them to care about your character and their story dilemma. So right up front, your character, the story dilemma, all right? Readers want a sense that this is only the beginning. It's only the beginning. It's that sense of, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the circus. It's like, welcome to my story, and oh boy, more is coming, all right? They want to know what's going to happen next, and so that is your major goal at the beginning of your novel. So let's talk about a few ways the beginning can go wrong, because when it goes wrong, you're going to lose your readers. These are some of the things you want to avoid. And I'll give you an example. I began reading a suspenseful spy thriller. All right, whoa, okay, I like reading spy thrillers. Chapter 1 comprised a finely detailed conversation, quote, introducing, unquote, the main character in his everyday world, but with one iota of story or suspense or questions of what's going. There wasn't even a situation. It was just a conversation. All right. And the chapter was filled with finely detailed descriptions of the setting, the protagonist's appearance, including, I'm not kidding, down to the buttons on his shirt. The tools he used, and backstory about his family. And there's absolutely no story in this whole first chapter. I wondered if this was a romance presented in the guise of a thriller. If it had been billed that way, I wouldn't have purchased the book in the first place, much less started reading. So I decided I'd give the author a break, because I'm waiting for the spy thriller, right? And maybe the story starts in chapter 2. Okay, this is a published novel. This went through an agent and a publisher and the publisher's editors and all of this. And okay, chapter 2 presented the save the cat details of the protagonist caring for an ailing family member, and a long description of native talent built to professional standards. Okay, now we know we've got he's got skills. The protagonist is a male. Now we know he has skills, and we know that he's a good guy, but there's still no story. All right? So I was curious. I've read 2 chapters now. When does the story start? All right. Finally, in chapter 3, after all this introduction and beginning and setting and who the character is, and save the cat, he's a good guy, and yes, he's got all these special skills that people just talk about. Finally, in chapter 3, the intrigue starts, sort of. But the problem was the author had already lost me. I had 2 chapters in, and it didn't feel like a spy story and or a thriller, all right? So essentially, I got to chapter 3 because I was so astounded. My curiosity drove me to go, when does the story start? This is just incredible. I'm 2 chapters in, and there's no story yet. I stopped because there was a lot of accounting, what we just talked about a minute ago. There's all this listing and details, and it's like a spreadsheet about the protagonist, but there's still no story. All right. So what you want to do is right away you want your reader to ask what will happen next, and that doesn't come by long descriptions of setting or detailed descriptions down to the buttons on the shirt of your hero. All right, you need a story, and you need to start in the story. However talented your protagonist is, all those skills, right? Don't tell the reader, all right? Show your protagonist in action using those skills, or at least some of them, right at the beginning. Your readers are smart enough to figure out when your protagonist overcomes a problem using certain skills. They go, oh, that's one of his skills. All right, but so you're not telling them he's got all these skills. You're showing, there's a skill, and then later on in the story, you show another skill. All right. So it's pretty easy to open with a scene that shows how your protagonist works, and dialogue shows how they think. Action shows how they operate, and we aren't at the mystery yet. There's no inciting incident. We're just getting to know how this character works in the real world. How do they solve a problem? So I think the easiest way to think about this is to start with a problem. It doesn't have to be a big problem, and then show your protagonist in action. All right. Action is so much better than description for getting your reader into your story. Remember, it's ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the story. You want your reader to feel like that. Oh boy, what's going to happen next? All right. So take your reader into the story, and just like that circus ringmaster, welcome them by showing them they're already in the story. They're already at the circus, okay? Now you're welcoming them, and don't make your reader wait for the story to start. Give them an idea of all those story elements that will happen later in the story. This is your protagonist. This is how she thinks. This is how she acts. She's a smart cookie, whatever it is. Set up some scene that gives her some kind of opposition, and then show her skills by making her work. Okay? So, let's look at some story opening stumbling blocks. Because the best way to start the story is to jump right in, but it's easy to not jump right in, especially for beginning writers. Just remember that just like the Ringmaster, you're introducing your reader to that story world, and you want the reader to follow and feel all that excitement. So just step into the spotlight like the Ringmaster and begin your story. So here's some elements to consider. You want to set up the tone of your story right away. And if it's funny, if it's snarky, if it's dark, if it's mysterious, give your reader a sense of how that story is going to be told, the tone of the story, because that's going to give them a sense of, oh boy, this is the kind of story I like to read. That's all you need to know. But what you don't want to do is start funny because you want it to be funny at the beginning, and then the rest of the story is dark and mysterious. Let your reader know right from the beginning, I'm here at the circus, and this is just where I want to be, right? Also, just to minimize that those descriptive details at the beginning. You can save so much description for later on in the story. You've got 300 or more pages to add lots of details. Just drip them in. You don't need long narrative descriptive passages, especially at the beginning. You don't need a laundry list of features of your character. You don't need a laundry list of the setting. You want to give your reader a sense of where they are. Are they in the city, out in the country, in the dark woods, whatever it is. But you don't need a long list. Just make your protagonist move through that setting and give them the details as the protagonist acts. So get to the action, do it now, and that's how you incite your reader to want to keep reading. And then this is a real beginner mistake, and that is a gratuitous hook that's there just for excitement because you think it's going to hook the reader. You've read about you need a hook at the beginning, so you do something that has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of your story, but it's kind of intriguing. So that could be like a sexy sex scene or big fight scene, but the rest of your story is just like starting funny and then being a dark mystery. It's the same kind of thing. This is a mystery. Your reader's there to solve a puzzle along with your sleuth, all right? So you want to set that mystery tone. You want to introduce them to your sleuth. You don't need a sexy sex scene to hook the reader. Hook the reader with your protagonist and show them that this is the kind of character I like to follow in a story, all right? And then just a word of caution, which is about your word use. You don't want to have lots of adjectives and adverbs. Just move your reader through the sentence into the action. All right? Get your reader into the story. I don't know how many times I've said that, but it's really important. Just go into the story and show your protagonist in action. You're not at the inciting incident yet. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It just has to be something that shows how your protagonist works in the world. How do they deal with other people? How do they live in that environment, the big city or the country? Introduce your reader to the story. This is it. You have come to the right circus. This is the book for you, all right? Today's readers want a good story, and your beginning sets up your reader for the rest of the story. Lose them at the beginning, you won't get them back. Your goal at the beginning is to get the reader involved in the story. And no matter how many books you read or famous or formulas that you consider for writing a story, okay? At the beginning, engage your reader. And I think that's what trapped that exciting spy thriller reader. She had all these formulas. You have to introduce your protagonist in their ordinary world, and you have to like give them a save the cat moment where they're good and kind to somebody, or a kitty or a dog or a child or something. But there was no story, so you need the story first. All the rest of that stuff comes later. So you want to reassure your reader that the story that you promised feels like the genre they want, gets your protagonist in action right away, and delivers a dilemma that keeps them wanting more. So, be the ringmaster. Announce the excitement of your story ahead, right at the beginning. Okay, I hope that helps. It's kind of a rant, but I hope that helps. And also, I want to mention that one of my favorite writers, Luke McCallum, has a new novel out, and I'm listening to the story on Audible, and it's just so great. This story is set in World War One, and it starts out on the French-German border, but it's just such a wonderful way to engage in a story, to listen to a story. So Audible is a sponsor for this series, Write a Killer Mystery, and there's a link in the description below for you to get a 30-day free trial of Audible. You'll get 1 credit, which gives you 1 book. And it's good for any premium selection title in their whole category of thousands of books. Plus, you also get the Audible Plus catalog of podcasts and audiobooks, and there's guided wellness, and you can listen all you want, free for 30 days. And I encourage you to give it a try. I love audiobooks. I've been listening to audiobooks for years, and it's wonderful to have Audible sponsoring Write a Killer Mystery. All right, if you enjoyed this session of Write a Killer Mystery, please subscribe, and don't forget to click that little notification bell so you'll know when the next episode appears. In the meantime, keep writing.